So it's been a well-used method for a while now to pull a thread to get a straight line when making voile curtains or panels, as these are, because voile's notoriously difficult to work with. It's very slithery, it moves around, it doesn't do what you want it to. I'm actually quite lucky here in that this one is a cotton linen mix, so it's a little bit more stable than most, but sometimes it's like trying to juggle water. They're really hard work. But pulling a thread allows you to cut with the confidence of knowing that you're cutting on the warp or the weft and that it will be straight. And as long as you repeat that principle on all sides of your pieces, you'll get as good a square as you're going to get. But also you can, on from that, you can do the same things to create your hems. Turning the hems can also be quite difficult, getting them really nice and neat and parallel. So you can apply the same principle to the hem. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to cut this piece down. I've just cut this to a sizable piece so I can show you. But I'm going to cut it to size now using the pull thread method that you've no doubt seen before. And then I'll go on to do the hems as well. So this wants to be 77.5 centimetres wide. This side I know already is cut to a pulled thread, so I know that's nice and straight. So I'm just going to work from that and pull and cut this side and get that thread out there ready. So there we go, I've got my thread already pulled out there, and what I'll do is I'll just very carefully, and I find that the best method is to not keep the fabric flat and do that, but to let it sort of fold on the thread, and somehow it just seems to come out a bit easier. Don't have too much tension on the fabric. You can sort of bunch it all up towards you as well, that helps, and then just sort of carefully run it out. This one's quite slubby, so when you get a little slub like that, sometimes it can catch and break, but it's come through okay on this one. And then I'm up to my pin, so I'm just going to snap it here. It's all starting to pull out evenly now. And if you watch there, you'll see it appear any minute now. There we go. And there's the end of it coming through now. So now we've got quite a nice clear line. There. And I can cut along there, knowing that that's nice and parallel now to that. And even if my fabric's sort of doing this on the table, it doesn't matter. As long as I follow that line, it will be straight eventually. So I'm going to do the same at the side to get the drop. Okay, so that's my 103 from there to there. So same thing. Just pull. A bit of a slub. Will it come through? Yeah, and there you can see it coming through. Very satisfying when it all comes straight in one piece. Okay, so I've turned this so that it's easy to see from above. This is the side, that's the side, bottom, top. I'll leave the top till the very end because it may vary slightly once I've sewn the side seams. It can sometimes pull in a tiny bit at the edge, but generally it shouldn't do. So my side hems are 1 inch or 25mm. So if I, and they're double turned obviously, so if I start and pull one at 50mm, got a friend. Oh, God. And then another one at 25. In fact, this one you can do it, it sounds daft, but if you do it at 24, because when you're double turning it, you just need it to be ever so slightly tinier. All those tiny little increments do make a difference. And it's right near the edge, so it's going to be harder to sort of pull it like that. You just have to do it as if you were gathering. Okay, so there we go. You can see the 2 lines there. Just flatten it out. Now the temptation is to just come straight in here with an iron, but I tend not to do that straight away. I fold it by hand, and what you'll find is it'll fold much more naturally where you've pulled that thread. Just makes life easier. And I sort of use my hands a bit like an iron. I'll hold it with the heel of my hand there, roll and fold it till I can feel that it's sort of settling into that channel where the pulled thread is, and then just sort of press it with my fingers. And admittedly, on some really slippery synthetic springy voiles, this is quite difficult, but it still does work. Even if you make a slight impression with this fold, it makes all the difference. It gives you that initial guide. And then over again, and try and keep this quite tight so that this edge is hard into the fold. Otherwise you get a bit of a little gap there, a light gap. But again, you'll feel when it's just sitting right, you'll feel that it's folding on that where you've pulled the thread, and the edge of your first turn. So as is with a lot of this type of making, a lot of it's in the preparation. Get this right and it makes the sewing a lot easier and more successful. Now if you wanted to, you could just go straight to the machine and not bother pressing this, especially if you're a bit concerned about whether it's going to shrink or anything. I know this is quite stable, so I'm just going to make sure that the ends are not, you know, all sticking out like this, all twisted, but are nice and parallel, so you don't get any twists. And then I'm just going to quickly run over it with the iron. Nothing major, just to really just hold it in place. That'll do. So I'll do the same to the other side. And then the bottom hem, I'm going to do a double 2-inch hem, or double 50, so I need to do the same as I've done here, but at every 50mm rather than 25. So again, just do that first one a mil less. And then just double check it's in the right place. Just got a break here, so I've had to find the end of it to hook it back out. It's all frayed up a bit, but there we go, I've got it. Okay. And then, same as before, just roll it first with your fingers. Just hold it with the heel of your hand and then work your way along. It actually matters not whether you do it like that, unfold it, turn it and then fold it back up again, or whether you fold it like this now. What I sometimes find I have to do though, whichever way you do it to be honest, is when you turn that you get this little bit of, you get it rising up a bit there, so that tends to get in the way of a good fold at the bottom. So you can just trim that off a little bit, just at a bit of an angle like that. You'll find you'll get a closer fold at the bottom there. And same thing, try and get this, tuck it right down into that fold. So same thing, I'll just give this a quick press, nothing heavy duty, just a cursory one. Sometimes you can over press things and spoil that nice neat edge, I find. Also got a bit of, I'm just going to roll this a bit more. So. So there we go, so I shall machine these hems now. We'll come back and finish the top. Okay, so here I am at the machine. So what I tend to do when I sew these side hems, as my usual mantra, is good control of the fabric. at the machine, it gives you a much better finish. So what I tend to do is I start off, I sew really close to the edge of the hem, and I keep a really firm grip of this front and back, and I sort of and keep it parallel as you sew, and that'll give you a much flatter hem rather than relying on the tension of the machine. So it's completely flat. It is a very nice fabric to work with this because it's got a decent structure to it. It's Ian Mankin voile called Padstow, and it's got a linen and cotton mix, I think. But either way, it's a really nice fabric. I've used it quite a lot now, and it always makes up really well. Got the other side as well. And then if you remember where you cut that little angle bit off, maintain that. Don't be tempted to just level it up. Forget and level it up. So keep that little sort of offset at the bottom there. Firm grip, front and back. Make sure you're not sort of doing this here, or make sure it's laying flat each time when you go, and then get a good grip of it like that. And keep it that way. The bottom hem, I always take care to get these edges nice and parallel, and these all lined up nicely before I set off. And I do quite a short back tack here, just 3 stitches or so. I just find it looks a bit neater. So again, relaying that hem, make sure you've got it as you pressed it, and then right on the edge, a good grip, and off you go. So there we go. Nice flat hems. I can just give that a quick press again, but do be careful. I'll tell you why. Okay, so you've just sewn your side hems, your bottom hem, and it's all nice and flat, bar a bit of wrinkling which will press out. However, if you use a poly cotton thread, like I tend to use, just be careful with the heat of your iron and that you don't press too hot, too much. Even though this is a linen cotton, probably could stand it. The thread, if you shrink that with too hot an iron, it'll undo all your lovely good work that you've just done, getting this nice and neat. So just turn your iron down a bit until you're confident that you can turn it up a bit. And then get the corners nice and parallel before you press them, because you can press that into it as well. And again, hold your hems nice and straight. I've still got a bit of steam on. I'll switch that off actually. Probably will still go for a bit. And then up this side. So it's just a bit of a slightly crooked shape there. I'm just going to pull it a nice neat, because these are actually flat panels, so the squarer they are, the better they'll look when they're up. And then once you've let go, if you keep hold of it sometimes while it cools, you get a much neater straight edge. There we go. So all that remains is the top hem for the channel, and these are done.